Here we are once again, Rowan class. Hello, you are very welcome. Just take you for a little whistle-stop tour, see what we've been doing. Yes, now science. That's a bit upside down. Let's go this way. We have been looking at life cycles and living things in their habitats. So we looked at various insects and we compared the life cycle of a dragonfly and a butterfly. Odd that, because I would have thought they had a very similar life cycle, but in fact there's two different types of metamorphosis. Ask your child if they can tell you the difference between the two. We then moved on to looking at pollination, how seeds are dispersed, and we did the fantastic task of dissecting a flower. We were fortunate enough to be able to see right inside an alstroemeria, and you could actually see the ovule, which is quite rare. We also carried on and looked at the differences between sexual reproduction in plants and asexual reproduction. Again, check with your small person, can they tell you the difference? Got a bit of this display going on here for the children to refer to. Lots of vocabulary. Now you can see here, there's some paint ready to go for our art. What we've been doing is inspired by Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh, however it is alleged to be pronounced. We have created some printing templates. Clearly, we had to make sure that the element of the picture that we studied was replicated in reverse, because when we come to print them, they're going to come out in the reverse way to what you would see. Prior to that, we were looking at some weaving and were inspired by some Viking artifacts. We had a look at what warp and weft were. So there's our little sample, our example to start with. And then, inspired by some of the artifacts, we created our own piece of Viking-inspired weaving. Right, let's move on. Talking of the Vikings, that's what we were studying in history. We had a look at the timelines of how previous units of history that we studied so far in year 3 and year 4 correspond with the Vikings and the ancient Greeks. So we compared what was going on in the world at the same time. We looked at Viking family life, and also we had to look at where the Vikings came from and how they traded, what their reason for travelling was. Okay, let's move on. What else have we got in the classroom here? Let's have a talk about some English. We had been reading The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, and we decided to write a diary as if we were Edmund. What an interesting character Edmund is. So Edmund encounters the White Witch, who tries to persuade him to take his siblings through the wardrobe into Narnia and bribe him, saying that he will be king, which obviously played to his ego. We did a conscious alley experiment or investigation, where half of the line was trying to persuade Edmund not to take his siblings to the White Witch, and the other half were persuading him that he should do it. It's a very interesting outcome. You have a very persuasive bunch. Here is an example of one of our final diary pieces, and what was fantastic is we kept in keeping with the 1940s evacuee style of language. They were quite a privileged family, so there's lots of spiffing and what-hoing going on, which is marvellous. Currently, we are looking at poetry, and we're bringing together some elements of our vocabulary, some higher level vocabulary, to write a cinquain. Very specific type of poem. I cannot wait for the final outcome for that. Now, we were modelling this today, we were having a look, and that's what we came up with together for our example of a cinquain, looking at a picture of a beautiful tall tree. And I wonder if you can spot any patterns in there. As you can see, usual for me, I will put lots and lots of modelling up on the wall, and this is all of our modelling for our diary entry written by Edmund. Quick scoop round. Oh, there's some maths, today's maths. As I quickly zip past my messy desk, let's have a look at some maths we've been doing recently. So, we were looking at translation of shapes on 4 quadrangles. We just started looking at scale and correspondence and how it might sound a bit like a step back in looking at modelling, but it's all about understanding the depth of why we represent calculations the way that we do. Really looking at some tricky worded problems, making sure we read those questions carefully. There's some more work on translation and angles as well. We were looking at not only the positions of shapes on a quadrant, but also, for the first time, I think, in Year 5, we actually get our hands on some protractors and look at the skill of how to measure angles. Very successful. Everybody in Rowan worked extremely hard. Now, there's one last thing I want to show you. I'm going to take you on a little tour. Let's go out of the classroom, through the door, along the corridor, and I'm hoping I can get all of this in. This is a piece of writing that we were particularly proud of. We wrote a newspaper article based on the book The Promise. Now, I was astounded. It was incredible. We had some very inventive headlines. The idea that this story could prompt such fantastic writing, it was beyond my wildest dreams. It was fantastic. I honestly believe we have some budding journalists amongst us. And that's it for Rowan for the moment. Please keep in touch, and don't forget, ask your small people just what is going on in your learning. See how much they can tell you.
Okay, we are off to Mulberry classroom. Apologies about the noise in the background, that's Fusion. We've got our Vikings display here with some of our work on it. And then if we walk into the classroom, we've got some of our newspaper writing up on the wall here. All of the other ones are there too. And then we've set up some history, some art. Those are our flowers left over. In science, we cut up these flowers to see all the different parts in them. And then if we come across here, we can see we've got some of our printing that we did in art. And this printing was based off of a Van Gogh painting. Got some of there, keep going across the printing. So the children based it off of Van Gogh's Starry Night there. And they used the patterns that they could see. They chose an area to recreate, and then they made their board and printed it using the colours that they had seen. And we looked at different types of printing there. We've also done some other artwork where we did some weaving. So the children did weaving that was inspired by the Vikings. So we've got some weaving here. Let me come over here to this weaving. Here we go, there's some more. The children got to decide how they did their weaving, what colours they'd use, what size strips they'd use, what patterns they might add to it based off of what worked for them. And then if I come to the front of the classroom, we've got some work on the Vikings here. So the children have all picked a piece of work that they enjoyed doing. So we did some comparisons between the Anglo-Saxons. We did some work on different types of transport. There, we did our Jorvik visit that I'm sure, our Jorvik online thing that I'm sure the children have told you about. We did a recount of what it was like to be attacked at Lindisfarne, which was good. We've got some of those up on the wall over there actually. And then if we come to the carpet over here, we have some of our RE work. So we've been doing some justice and fairness in RE, and we've also been doing some work on Judaism. So we've got some plates there, which is food celebrating the Jewish festival. We've got some Oxfam fact files. And we've got some looking at different branches of Christianity and Judaism there as well. So that's the Mulberry Open Classroom at the moment. Not much has changed really with the organisation thanks to COVID, but hopefully that will change next half term.
Hello, welcome to Acacia Classroom. First of all, I'm going to show you some lovely work that we did around our Vikings topic, where we were comparing the lives of Vikings, Anglo-Saxons and ourselves, and we were looking at the different foods that we all ate, the games that people played, the jobs they did, and we found that there was quite a lot of similarities actually between ourselves, the Saxons and the Vikings. Obviously we've got computer games now, which means our lives are much better, but the Vikings enjoyed board games, as is the Anglo-Saxons. We all enjoy a nice bit of roasted and food, and the Saxons and Vikings are both very good at moving around on their specially created ships. In art, we've been doing some printing, And you can see here, these are some of our printing blocks that we made by attaching some string to cardboard, and we were inspired by Van Gogh's Starry Night for these lovely swirly patterns. So we've used the same colour palette as well. We then printed our pattern in a repeating fashion, experimenting with sort of different overlapping patterns, different rotations, different orientations, and you can see we've got some really interesting artwork here, which the children are very proud of. In art, we've also been looking at weaving, and so we were looking at these Viking artefacts and the patterns that we saw there, and we were inspired to create some very interesting weaving. We looked at warps and wefts and tried out some different patterns. In science, we've been having a look at living things and their habitats, and we've been examining life cycles of dragonflies and butterflies and looking at the different stages of development that they go through. In maths, we've been looking at different ways to represent problems, and so we've been looking at bar models in particular and thinking about how we can use them to answer some difficult word problems by thinking about the whole and the different parts. Thank you for coming to see Acacia class. Wanted to leave you with our lovely Viking longboat display here. Hopefully we'll be able to welcome you back to our classroom in person soon. Until then, keep sailing.